All right, hi. In this video, I'm going to talk about if home prices can go down. That seems evident, but a lot of people don't seem to understand the economy because homes take longer to move up and down. They are typically lulled into a false belief that home prices can't go down. So I'm going to quickly dispel that, and I'm also going to talk about why it is very likely that home prices can go down very rapidly in the next couple of years. And then the second part of the video, we're going to discuss the nuances in what you should look at if you're trying to price your home to sell, and what you should be cautious and consider if you are getting ready to come back into the buyer's market, or when you are ready to come back into the buyer's market, things that can affect your home value long term. Because during the pandemic, home prices were going up so rapidly that sellers really didn't know what they had. So if they had what I call a trophy property, or they had something that was less desirable because it had a bunch of features of the house that buyers generally would reject, or at least pay less for in a regular market, home prices were going up so fast that buyers were still making offers on those properties. You still had bidding wars. And if you were a buyer, you were still forced into those properties because you were writing multiple offers on many properties, and your offers were getting rejected, even though you were potentially waiving your inspection period. Maybe you were letting your earnest money go hard, which was to be released to the seller before your due diligence was even up, or you were getting rid of your due diligence altogether. You were basically doing anything you possibly could to get into a home to capture some of that price appreciation that was so rampant during the pandemic. But now that times are changing, now that home prices are cooling off or coming down in many metros, these are the nuances that you should be very aware of. Again, whether you're pricing your home or whether you're looking to potentially buy a home sometime relatively soon or in the future. All right, guys, that being said, I am Ken Blumberg, your All-American Realtor, a 20-year real estate agent. I have just about 250 five-star reviews on Zillow. You can check my review link in the description below. But let's get into the video. So real home prices, guys. If you look at the chart on the screen, in 2006, we had a housing bubble, and we are currently sitting way above where that bubble collapsed from. Now, of course, things are different now. We don't have the liar loans that we had at the time, which meant no income verification, no job, no doc loan. They called it a ninja loan. Basically, anybody with a pulse could buy a home, and it didn't matter how big of a home you wanted to buy. They were giving loans out to anybody and everybody. Why no one ever went to jail for that is still a question that I'll ponder and probably think about till the end of my days, but that's the reality of what happened. Next, we see the median sales price of houses sold in the United States. Here was the height of the median home price in 2006, right before the collapse. If you look at that price, it was a median sales price of $257,400. At the bottom of that trough, after prices had fallen for around 5 to 6 years, the median sales price on average was $208,400. So that is approximately a $50,000 loss right there. So that's a pretty big hit if you were caught in that. And you can see even back in the 90s, I mean, home prices were at $126,800 and dropped to $117,000. Now that's not anything compared to the Great Recession, but if you had bought at this peak and you lost your job and you were selling your property, you would have felt that, and that would have felt like a crash to you. But that brings us to where we are now. We are basically a little bit below the highs where we peaked out in late 2022 when they raised interest rates at the fastest pace in history, where the median home price was $442,600, which was up from approximately $317,000 in 2020. And what is that? About $120,000 difference that home prices went up in that very short amount of time. And again, this is the median. This is half of the homes are worth more and half are worth less in the total US housing market. But that's still astounding over a 2-year period. Now, again, to go further into, can prices go down? Because again, a lot of people are in disbelief. They feel like if they hold their breath, if they stamp their feet, if they get really angry and fire enough real estate agents, then they're going to get the price for their home that they're looking for. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. And again, I don't mean to poke fun at people that are going through a tough financial time, but I do want to educate people. I do want people to understand that there are forces at play that literally most of us have no idea. But there are so many factors that go into if a home prices are going to go up and down. And I'm just going to run through a few of them right now to try to educate people. But right now, 14 states have descending home prices. And out of the main city metros that are tracked, you've got 128 that are going down out of the 387. So that's a fair amount. And this is at the beginning of the housing downturn. So I speculate that things are probably going to get worse because, again, everything goes through cycles, which I'll show you. But just to emphasize this point, you got Punta Gorda, Florida, it's down 18% year over year. You got Round Rock, Texas, down 16%. Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, down 13%. And the list goes on. So home prices are already dropping in many metros across the United States significantly. So if you don't think it could happen in your metro, you are probably going to be in for a rude awakening. And again, I don't know what's going to happen because, as we're going to get to in a few minutes, the Federal Reserve and the government can pull some monetary magic out of their house and turn what should be a massive recession into something that resembles what happened during COVID. So let's move on here, though. Here's a gold price chart. If you can see, over the past 5 years, gold shot up. If you've been paying attention, it shot up to $5,500 approximately, and now it's down to $4,100 per ounce. So gold goes up and down. If you've been following the Bitcoin price, Bitcoin hit approximately $124,000 per Bitcoin. Whether you believe it or not, there's many people that think it's the answer to the Federal Reserve and the money printing and the manipulation that goes on. So there are many people that buy this asset. And as we can see, prices go up and down, right? Bitcoin started as almost worthless. And over the past 15 years, approximately, it hit a huge record high. And now it's come down and it's holding. We'll see what's going to happen with Bitcoin. We'll see if enough people get tired of the games that the Federal Reserve and our government likes to play. And if they start moving their money out of the dollar and other currencies, and if Bitcoin actually becomes a life-changing technology and a world reserve currency. So remains to be seen. As you can see, almost every company, at least the large ones, have a price that goes up and down. Nvidia right here, you can see the chart. That's a one-day chart. If you look at 20 years, the company hasn't been around for that long, but you can see Nvidia being a chip manufacturer and being the AI craze, prices have gone vertical. So that brings me to where we are now. Again, I want to educate you because getting mad about your home price doesn't change the reality of what a buyer will pay. There are always forced sellers. There are generally no forced buyers. A buyer's going to do their research and they're going to find the best deal. And they can typically take a fair amount of time to do it. Not during the pandemic, but during quote unquote normal times. Typically a buyer is under no duress to rush into a home. And this is what the educated consumer knows. This is why the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, because they're paying attention to this every day and they are focusing on making money. So again, I don't want you to spend your whole life trying to make money like a lot of these people do, but I do want you to understand that everything goes up and down in value. And if you're looking to sell your home, maybe you're not ready to do it now, but you're looking to do it 5 or 10 years out, you should just be paying somewhat attention. You could follow my channel or other educational channels out there, but pay somewhat attention to the news because you might want to consider timing the sale in accordance to when things are really good, where you can get multiple offers and you can get top dollar. Unlike some of the people that just say, hey, I'm going to sell when I'm in trouble, which means you're probably going to sell at a loss because you're probably going to sell at a bad time in the economy, or you're going to have to underlist your property because you need to move it quickly. So a little bit of diligence goes a long way. This unique economy is brought to you by the letter K. The K-shaped economy, it really is shocking as to this headline here that the top 20% are now responsible for close to 60% of consumer spending, while the bottom 80% are responsible for only 42%. And this is the greatest divide we've seen in history. So again, a little education goes a long way, folks. I mean, for God's sake, if not for you, for your children, right? I mean, we don't want a economy of masters and slaves and owners and serfs. At least I don't. And that's why I spend part of my time trying to educate you guys so we can thrive, not survive together, because otherwise we are in real trouble. So part of the reason why I think home prices are going to go down, we'll start getting into that portion of the video. If you look at nominal prices of homes that you can see in this chart, the red line has shot up. So basically, even though prices increased drastically, the nominal price means that home prices went up faster than other goods and services. So people who bought a home during the pandemic realized an outsized gain compared to most other people in the economy. So when they go to sell this home, the buyer is going to feel the burden of that unless prices come down. You can see that the median income to home value is at above what we saw during the Great Recession. At that time, it was 6.82, approximately 7 years of your salary to buy a median home price. Today, it is over 7 times your annual salary to buy a home in today's market. So historically, that's way above average. I mean, you're looking at about 4.5, possibly as your average, maybe even 3.5. So prices are very, very high right now. So in this chart, you can see the treasury yields very high right now. So the government is paying a lot of interest comparatively to what we've seen in the past, at least going back to around 2007, because they are trying to entice people to invest and continue to contribute to the government's debt, because right now we can't pay off our debt, so we have to continue to borrow to pay our expenses. So that's a big problem. I mean, that's potentially, in my opinion, why they printed so much money during the pandemic, to try to dilute some of this debt and put some of that debt onto you as a citizen of the United States. And this is a secret tax that they're not going to tell you about, but this is what's going on right now. As you can see in this chart, this is why I think home prices are going to come down. At the beginning of the pandemic, you had interest rates about 2.8%. Now they are approximately 6.52%. That's down a little bit from the high, but they look like they're headed upwards because, again, there's no relief in Iraq. The war is still raging on. We are still spending tons of money, and we are still increasing our debt on a national level at exponential rates. So what does that mean for the average consumer? Well, if you bought your house during the pandemic and you rode it all the way up to the very top of the market, and let's say it was worth $442,600, which is the national median home price, but you only had a 2.83% interest rate, your payments, taxes, insurance, basically all in, except for possibly your association, was $2,631 a month. Now, let's say you came in at the very height of the market and you were so excited and you were fighting furiously to get a home, and you finally realized that the market was slowing down a little bit, but you were obsessed and you needed to get into a home, and you paid the top rate at 7.41%. Your payments in comparison was $3,810. So, I mean, that's an extra $1,000, approximately $200 a month. That's a huge burden, especially if the economy slows down, especially if your income falters, you lose that part-time work, you're not getting the overtime you were. Many things can happen, and if you have put yourself in jeopardy to buy a house at the very top of the market, you could potentially be looking down the barrel of a gun. And that's why home buyers are pulling back right now. And when I say pulling back, they're pulling back on buying homes, which is ironic because your personal savings rate, even though it was going up massively during COVID because people weren't going out as much, it is currently down at one of the lowest levels we've seen since approximately 2006. So even though they're pulling back on home spending, they're still spending more of their personal savings, and their saving rates are going down. So this cannot be good for home ownership in the next few years as far as I'm concerned. Now, we've already talked about national debt, but we can also see here that credit card debt and other personal loans have skyrocketed. So while people are spending more money, their credit card and other debts are going up at a pretty alarming rate. Next, we see the Case-Shiller PE ratio in the stock market. So guys, I don't know if you remember from the history books something they called the Great Depression, but it changed people's lives for the worse. Basically, at that time, you hear stories about people jumping out of windows because they lost everything they owned. You heard stories about mass numbers of Americans sitting in lines for a bowl of soup, massive unemployment, and this was preceded by the Roaring 20s when everybody thought prices were going to go up forever and there was no problems. Shoe shine boys were giving stock tips and everything looked great. But the rich know that this probably will not go on forever, and they prepared. They probably got out a little early and sold. But the poor generally get caught up in that irrational exuberance and ride the roller coaster right off the rails into the gully, unfortunately. So again, trying to educate you guys here. You can see the same thing in the dot-com, and we know how the dot-com bubble ended in the dot-com bomb. So it didn't go well. I mean, obviously the internet has revolutionized the way we live our lives, but at that time it was too new and it wasn't thought out enough. Just like what I think is going to happen in AI. You have 7 companies that are all heavily invested in AI, in chips, manufacturing, building data centers, and this is propping up the whole economy. And the funny thing is, to the best of my ability to see clearly how the people feel about it, generally, most people don't like it. Most people are tired of being locked away in front of their computers. They're tired of living this virtual life. And see, they want to get back to some semblance of what was normal before COVID, which is interacting with their friends and family and actually being engaged in their communities. And so much so, you can even see this when someone talks about AI at a college commencement address. The people in the audience, the kids, young adults rather, who want to go out and make their impact on the world are booing the speakers when they're trying to jam AI down their throats and tell them that this is something they should be really excited about. So if you have a population that doesn't want AI or is rejecting it, the chances that this doesn't end badly is very, very small in my opinion. Because the dot-com, everybody was actually very enthusiastic about that. The internet was really exciting. As far as AI, as we get further into this transition, I don't know exactly where we're going, but I think people are starting to feel uneasy about it and they're starting to push back. So guys, that's a wrap. I'm going to leave it there. I'll go into the nuances of what you need to understand when you're buying or selling a home that'll affect the long-term value when you go to sell, or that you want to make sure that you're not overpaying for when you're a buyer. You don't want to get a class B or C tier property but pay class A price. And we'll talk about that next week because we're running a little long here, and I appreciate you staying with me if you got here. So guys, like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you. It helps me a lot. If you want to reach out to me, I'm a 20-year real estate agent. I have approximately 250 reviews on Zillow. You can check that out. It's pinned in the comments below. And I will take amazing care of you because I love people really, and I love real estate. This is a dream come true to be able to help people buy one of the biggest assets that they're going to ever purchase in their life. I take that very seriously, and that's why I've been so well reviewed over the years and why my clients have appreciated me and have been repeat clients over the years. So guys, thank you. I appreciate you. This is Ken Blumberg, your All-American Realtor, signing off for now. And I'll